Hi there. Welcome to Bourbon Turntable. This is the show that blends the love of music with the love of whiskey. Tonight, I'm bringing you another surprise, at least a surprise to me show. Um, as I'd mentioned a couple weeks ago, I had recorded a show with Beth Burrows, who is the American brand ambassador for Jim Beam Distilling Company. And we had some conversations during that show about some new products that were coming out. And then, like the day after we had recorded the show, Beth reached out and said, "Hey, we just found out that we're not supposed to talk about this yet." Okay. So put off releasing that show until March 20th, which is, as you're listening to this, as this show is being released, is today. As I'm recording this, it is the evening of the 19th. So she reached out to me late last night and said, "Hey, got a problem. They don't want anything out about this for another couple of weeks." And so I'm just trying to be, cooperative here. But so I was just thinking about what we could talk about tonight on the spur of the moment. And so I'm doing a show tonight called Maybe You're Missing Something. And I'm going to talk about 5 whiskeys that may or may not have tried and how to get those. And I'm going to talk about 5 different albums you may have heard before, but maybe you're missing them. Maybe you haven't listened to them in a while, or maybe you've never heard them at all. And so we'll go through that, the whole love of whiskey, love of music thing, and talk about some whiskeys that maybe you're missing, and some albums that maybe you're missing. Now, we'll get into the details of that in a moment, but first, I want to tell you about Bar Cart Co-op. Bar Cart Co-op is a collection of friends who produce content for the whiskey enthusiast. We have shows like Distillers Talk with Alan Bishop and Christy Atkinson. They talk with distillers from across the country and around the world about anything and everything in terms of distillation. Alan also has a couple of other shows called One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute, where if you're a distiller and you got a question, ask Alan. So you just email him a question. He'll post a video response to that so we can all see and learn from your question. Alan also has a show called If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything. In that show, he steers off the path of the distilled spirits world and gets more into the spiritual side of things. He'll talk about things of the paranormal, talk about religion, talk about you name it. It really runs the gambit. I was able to record a show with Alan recently, and hopefully you've had a chance to check that out yourself. My Whiskey Den with Pat and Mike and Mitch, they are live every Monday night, 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central. My Whiskey Den is where craft whiskey is king. Be sure to tune in, listen to their interviews with their guests, watch as they taste some really interesting spirits, and it's fun to hang out with the good folks in that chat. We also have Whiskey in My Wedding Ring with David Levine. David has a wonderful podcast where he will interview distillers. He also has a blog where he'll do whiskey reviews. David's very smart, excellent writer, does a really great job. Really proud of everything that he's done. And hey, you got our show too. If you're listening right now on your favorite podcast platform, go ahead and subscribe to that show. If you are watching us on YouTube, hey, you can subscribe to that as well. We would really appreciate it. And thanks for hanging out. So, maybe you're missing something. So, let's start with a whiskey. And this is, I'm drinking some Deer Hammer American Single Malt. Deer Hammer. Deer Hammer is owned by Lenny Eckstein. He is also the head distiller. Um, Lenny's Progeny series from 2023 was both my and Drew's whiskey of the year. It's exceptional. Not really discussing that here because you can't get it. Okay, but you can go online to deerhammer.com and you can order up pretty much anything else that he's got there. He has bourbon, he has rye, smoked corn whiskey is a treat, and single malts. He has one's a port cask finish. I'm usually not a big fan of port cask finishes, but tell you that thing is really well done. But what I'm drinking tonight is his standard American single malt. Comes in at 92 proof, so not too hot. And some there's man, that's nice and sweet. Like there's some maybe some plum notes, a little cocoa, uh, tobacco. Uh, Very good. I really enjoy this. So I'm going to talk about five whiskeys tonight. I'm not going to taste five whiskeys tonight, okay? But a little bit of hazelnut in there too. Uh, Always a nice chocolate note on what Lenny does because he uses a chocolate malt in his mash bills. But you can go to deerhammer.com and pick up a bottle of something or two or three, and they'll ship it right to your door. Really good stuff. The other one next one I want to talk about is okay. This is a little off brand for me because it's more of a less of a craft distillery, I guess, and that's Green River. But uh, and Green River's been around for I don't know 3 or 4 years. Um, Before that, it was OZ Tyler, and that was just they say there's no bad whiskey. Yes, there is, and it was called OZ Tyler. It was horrible. They changed their distillation and maturation techniques. They got some people in there that know what they're doing, and this stuff's fantastic. And since has been bought by Bardstown Bourbon Company, so they're part of that family. As far as acquiring this, it's got pretty wide distribution. You can probably find it in your local. The next, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. Let's go next to this little number from our friend Chris Koenig over at Golden Beaver Distillery, Pacific Flyway. This is straight bourbon whiskey. This is 109.58 proof. This is a single barrel number 58. It's just recently been released. Uh, and you can go to goldenbeaverdistillery.com and you can order a bottle of that. See, I mean, the reason you need to try this is it's different. Okay. That's not the only thing. It's different and it's good. Okay. It's not different just for the sake of being different, but, uh, you know, maybe you're missing something. And, if you're just staying in that, same pour all the time, have your daily drinker, and that's what you stick with, there's a whole new world out there. And this is one of those things that is very much worth your time, attention, and money. And Chris has been doing some really cool things out there. The and I didn't mention this, but I've mentioned this before. But the unique thing, one of the unique things here, is that rice is one of the grains in this bourbon. So it's corn and rice and rye and malted barley. So it's a 4 grain. So You need to check this out because it's really, really good stuff. I made some notes as I was prepping for the show. Um, Pair note on uh, Chris's rice grain products is a constant. It's a very familiar note. It's kind of a signature note. This has got a lot of other developments going on with it. There's some cinnamon, there's some apple, some hay, nice grassiness to it. Really, really good. And uh, it's a nice change of pace from your standard, you know, bourbon. All right. So a little quick compare and contrast. All right. And I didn't talk a lot about tasting notes on this, but it's classic bourbon, Kentucky bourbon notes, caramel, vanilla, uh, butterscotch, leather, that it's going to hit all those notes. This is also straight bourbon whiskey, not made in Kentucky. That's okay. Um, but what you get from a pour of this is very different than a pour of this. Okay. And different is good. Okay. Different is good. So we need to be ready, willing, and able to explore some different things. All right. So I've gone through three whiskeys. Let me hit on a couple of um, albums that I wanted to talk about. The first is sitting over my left shoulder, and that is Quadrophenia by The Who. Now you must say, okay, The Who. Who hasn't heard of The Who? Okay, I'm about to go into a Dr. Seuss story here, I think, but who hasn't heard of The Who? Granted, everybody's heard of The Who. Everybody's listened to The Who. Most people that are Who fans have probably listened to this album. If you're not a Who fan, you've probably still heard a couple of the songs on it. Love, Rain, or Me, for example. That's the closing song. So fantastic, fantastic song by The Who. But when was the last time you heard this album? When was the last time you sat down, listened to it from beginning to end? It's a double album, came out in 1973. It was on the heels of the success of Tommy, and Quadrophenia sometimes gets lost in, Tommy, Who's Next, Live at Leeds, and then people kind of forget a lot of times about Quadrophenia, but you shouldn't. Uh, it's an amazing album, expertly composed together by Pete Townsend. John Entwistle does some not just great bass work as you would expect. He also arranges and plays all the horn parts in there. Of course, Keith Moon's a maniac on drums, and Roger Daltrey is, he's an amazing vocalist. So there's kind of an up close look at the album cover. It is a story of a young man who has four different personalities, and the way we as the listener relate to that is not, well, I've got four different personalities, but it's, I'm struggling to figure out my own personality. Where do I fit in my world? What is my worth? What is my value? What am I good at? Am I good at anything? Um, it's an incredibly powerful album, musically, lyrically, and thematically, if you will. Here's a great picture of the band. It's one of my favorite pictures of the Who. Pete Townsend is leaping the air, doing the splits. Roger Daltrey is swinging his microphone around. The only problem with this picture is I'd posted this once and commented about how much I liked it, and it was a prototypical Who photo. And I believe it was Steve Bayshore commented, Keith Moon is way too subdued. So yes, I would agree with that. I would agree with that completely. So check out Quadrophenia. And one more quick story about that. Two more quick stories about that. One, first time I met Andy Kasperzak, who is the husband and better half of Jolie Kasperzak, um, who is at Patoka Lake Winery, Distillery, Brewery, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Uh, First time I met Andy, somehow we got to talking about this album, and we both were huge fans. And I don't know how many of the songs we actually started to sing together, but we'd had a drink or 10 that day. And so we bonded over our love of Quadrophenia. Other story about this, I did get to see The Who, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. They were playing that's probably longer ago than that. It's probably 5 or 6 years ago. You kind of skip those COVID years. They were playing in at I believe it was Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, and it was kind of mezzanine level, center, right near the front, and you just take it all in. And granted, they're not jumping around like this, and Keith Moon had long since passed, as had John Entwistle. I think Daltrey was still swinging his microphone around, but it was a great way. It was a great way to see the Who late in their careers. But they played several songs off Quadrophenia, and that meant a lot to me because it's probably my favorite album of all time. So, go to another album real quick. Let's talk about, again, everybody knows this band. It's the Allman Brothers. We all know the Allman Brothers. Out of Wild South is their second studio album, and it kind of gets lost because of where it falls. It falls in between the Allman Brothers debut album and the Live at Fillmore East album, which came out just after it. And people tend to overlook Out of Wild South, even though it's got the song Midnight Rider, which is one of Greg Allman's best written songs. Also has In Memory of Elizabeth Reed, which is a live favorite. So really a tremendous album. Any jam band that ever was owes a lot to the Allman Brothers in this album, whether you're Leonard Skinner or the Black Crowes or Government Mule or Tedeschi Trucks Band or Blackberry Smoke. This album did a lot towards launching that and the touring that they did to support it and their previous album. It did a lot to launch the whole jam band genre, if you will. So if you've not listened to Out of Wild South in a while, highly recommend you check it out. It was produced by Tom Dowd, who was the go-to producer in that time frame. He was, I guess, the Rick Rubin or Dave Cobb of that era, and he produced for Cream and Eric Clapton and Ray Charles, just to name a few. And it was during the recording of the Out of Wild South album that Eric Clapton and Duane Allman became friends. And Clapton recruited Duane Allman to play on the album Derek and the Dominoes, Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs, which is another all-time great album. All right, so let's go to another whiskey, and I'm going to go to this Iron Root. If I can get the cap off, there we go. Iron Root Hubris. I'll show it to you in just 1 second. Tight cork. Iron Root Hubris. This is a corn whiskey, and I believe this has the purple corn and the yellow corn in it. It is 117.8 proof, and it's gorgeous. Um, I've kind of, I don't know, I've had this for a few months, and I'm starting to take it slow with it because I don't want to lose it. um, but a nice blackberry and honey, um, some butterscotch, brown sugar. Really good stuff. I think it's aged in a secondary European oak cask. So, cheers to the licorice family and our friend Shannon Hood, who's been working there for a few months now. And you can get this by going to their website, ironrootrepublic.com. However, they do not ship. So you will need to go to Denison, Texas and pick up your bottle, or find a friend that is in or around there to pick it up for you. I believe Shannon told me that they are getting ready to expand distribution of their other products. So that will be fantastic because there's a lot of really great stuff that comes out of Iron Root that we just don't get the opportunity to taste as easily or conveniently as we might like. But really, really great stuff. So be sure to check that out. Okay, let's go back to some music. And again, uh, uh, hopefully, this is an album that you've heard before, but Vivid by Living Color. And this album is important for a whole lot of reasons, in my opinion. One, it's just great. I mean, it's got some fantastic tracks on it. Cult of Personality, of course, being the most famous. Uh, Middleman, Desperate People, Open Letter, um, Funny Vibe, uh, What's Your Favorite Color? I mean, it's just fantastic song after fantastic song. But what this album did, led by Corey Glover and Vernon Reid on guitar, uh, it took what was traditionally thought of being black music, funk music, and it took it to what was typically thought of as being white music, hard rock, hard heavy metal, and it put it all together in one fantastically beautiful package. Um, and Living Colors Vivid is a classic in my mind. I don't think it got nearly the credit that they deserved with it. Um, and let's see, Corey Glover. Uh, he would take the braids in his hair, and he would whip them around like Roger Daltrey's microphone. And so a lot of really great theatrics in their stage show. I've not seen them in person live. I've seen videos of them live, and they're terrific. They are out on some limited touring now today. Everything I've heard is that they're still really great, and hopefully we'll get a chance to go check them out somewhere in the near future. Um, Another album that I wanted to mention to you, again, everybody knows Jack White. Granted, no no debate there. But an album that's kind of overlooked of his, because he's got a lot of stuff out there between the White Stripes, the Dead Weather, the Raconteurs, and then his, I think, 5 or 6 different solo albums at this point. Boarding House Reach was his third solo album. It did go to number 1, but was not that well reviewed. And quite frankly, I just kind of skipped over it at the time. It initially just didn't have a whole lot of appeal to me, but went back and I've listened to it again since, and it's got some really cool stuff going on in there. It pulls from a about every musical genre you can think of, and um, lots of creative rhythms, sounds. You know, however he's making the sounds that are going on the album, I don't know. It's very experimental in a lot of different ways, and you can hear the how the music that he's done with both of his side projects with the Dead Weather and with the Raconteurs and subsequent solo albums. A lot of that sound came out of the Boarding House Reach album, in my opinion. So go back, give it a listen. There's going to be something in there that you'll like because it is a whole lot of everything. So check that out if you haven't in a while. Again, it what year did that come out? Let me look that up real quick. 2018, so about 6 years ago. And so give it a listen, give it a fresh listen. Might be worth it. I think Jack White had teased some new music in 2024 after releasing 2 solo albums in 2023. So we'll see. Nothing specific has been said, but we'll see what he comes up with. Okay. Let's go to one more whiskey. We reach back here and get it. This is MB Roland Dark Fired Bourbon. This is 45% white corn, 33% dark fired corn, 70% rye, 5% malt. And this is what you finish a night on. You don't start here unless you're planning to finish here because it's powerful. And when I mean powerful, I don't mean that it's terribly high proof. It's 110, which is a nice healthy proof, but it's powerful in its flavor. And I think you'll certainly get some campfire and smoky notes out of it. There's some vanilla, smoked marshmallow, chocolate, tobacco, and even some grilled fruit, like grilled peaches and such. There's a lot going on in this whiskey. It's my favorite thing that they make. It's not that easy to find, but if you go to their website, mbroland.com, I just checked, and it's listed on their website for sale, and they ship to, I think, 40 different states or something. So be sure to check that out. It's different, okay? And again, different is good. And if you're messing around with some toasted barrel stuff and cigar finish stuff, which that's fine. This is that to a much higher degree, and it's really, really well done. Paul and Mary Beth have done a great job with the distillery down in Christian County, Kentucky. All of their grains are locally sourced, so there's a lot of thoughts of terroir in what they're doing too. So be sure to check that out. I can't say enough how much I enjoy that. But again, that's where you finish the night on MB Roland Dark Fired, unless that's all you're planning on drinking, because it's very powerful, but delicious. So one more album that I want to tell you about. This is an album that comes out on Friday, and so maybe you're missing something. Yeah, you're definitely missing something because there's no way you've heard this album yet. But I have had the opportunity to listen to this because it's by a band called Illiterate Light, and I recorded a show recently with their singer, songwriter, guitarist, and bass player, Jeff Gorman. Now, the Gorman name may sound familiar. That's because he's the nephew of Steve Gorman, ex of the Black Crowes, and now with Trigger Hippie and Bagman. But uh, Jeff did start out as a drummer, but he evolved over to playing guitar, and it's a duo. The drummer in the duo is Jake Cochran. So I recorded a show with Jeff, and we had some great conversations about their music. I've had a chance to listen to this EP. It is called "Slow Down Time," and it's special. It really, really is. I will, I often say really good things about the folks that are on our show, and that's because I'm not gonna if I don't like their music and I don't think it's really good, I'm not gonna have them on. And that's because I don't want to try to blow smoke up anybody uh, with that. But I'm telling you, this is one of the most special collections of songs that I've heard in a long, long time. It is an expertly crafted album, and I don't want to spoil my conversation with Jeff, which the first of this two-part episode will air a week from today, March 27th. But the album comes out March 22nd. It is called Slow Down Time. It is by the band Illiterate Light. So I just highly encourage you on Friday, go to your Spotify, go to your Apple Music, wherever you consume music, and give this a listen. It's EP, 5 songs. It's easily consumable, but very satisfying in what it brings you. The song "Killer Not a Lover" is clubhouse leader for song of the year for me right now, uh, and I think I'm confident you'll enjoy it. And if you've ever dealt with issues around grief, and most all of us have, um, there are songs on this EP that will really speak to you and give you a lot of great perspective. But don't want to give away too much from next week's show. So check out Illiterate Light, uh, March 22nd. Uh, Slow Down Time. You'll really enjoy it. So um, that's what I've got for you. Maybe you're missing something. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're like, hey, I listen to that stuff all the time. Um, but I've made a list. I made a list of 10 of each. So sometime in the future, we'll go down this route again and talk about some albums that you may not have heard before, or maybe not have heard in a while. I'll talk about some whiskeys that maybe you haven't had the chance to try, or maybe you haven't tried them in a while. So, all that being said, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your support. Really do appreciate it. Please comment, share, subscribe, all that yada yada good stuff. And until next time, cheers, love, and free bird. Now I'm going to pour some MB Rollin' Dark Fired. Good night.